Hey there, good morning. Welcome to Catching Up with Kieran over coffee about Cronulla. Another episode of Sharkcast Pod. It is our pleasure and honour to be here with you on this glorious Monday morning where all our teams do, Kieran, is they win. They win. The Cronulla Sharks, which everyone's invested in, listening and watching this. The Minnesota Vikings, Philadelphia Eagles, and we both go for Liverpool. I'm assuming they didn't play on the weekend, but they're going really well. Lower grades going good. NRLW, a bit of a hiccup we'll get into, but we are here to talk about the mighty Cronulla Sutherland Sharks, the greatest club in the history of the world. This show is brought to you by Dyson Logistics, the Royal Motor Yacht Club in Port Hacking, and Jason Hawes at Cripps and Cripps Real Estate. All three of those companies are stoked because we're heading to the finals, heading down to Melbourne on Saturday afternoon. It's going to be awesome. We're here to discuss that and a whole bunch of things. But let me throw this back to you, Kieran Fraser. How are you going, my friend?
It's not too bad. The weather is starting to warm up. I'm a little bit sore after yesterday, but things are looking positive. You can feel it in the air. Finals football's here, mate. Can't wait.
You're sore after watching the Sharks win by 20 points?
I was barely awake watching the Sharks play at 2 o'clock, but our gym had a fitness challenge for a young girl who got brain cancer and passed away. So it was basically 4 hours of training and a few NRL guys down there. So James Graham was down there, Roy Asatasi, Brad Takarangi,
Awesome.
Benny Ross, Halatau. So, yeah, it was a good day, and they absolutely flogged us.
That's good. Let me know where I can donate to that. I would love to do that. How's Asatasi looking these days?
He was on the run, so I ran about 16 Ks, and every time I was doing one of the runs, he was out there, and he looked like he could still go. And he's just still got that presence. He's still ripped. But the guy who really impressed me was James Graham because he was doing the runs, and you could just see, like, if that guy put his body weight into hitting you, like, he would break all my ribs. Like, I would not get up if James Graham put a hit on me.
So for a charity run, he still has that intensity about him?
Yeah, absolutely. They all do, mate. They've all got that switch, and they keep going. And actually, Benny Ross is actually very fast. I did a thing with him once, and I kind of thought I'll test myself against him and see if I can outrun him. How hard could it be? Because he's a big fella, and he put the Jets on, and he was gone.
Benny Ross. We love Ben Ross on Sharkcast Pod. Part of the crew, really, historically speaking. Always a friend. Sharkies win 40 points to 20 at Brookvale. Third straight win at the venue. And we've got a pretty good recent record over that mob, considering we've only won, I think, around 30 games out of 100. The recent record's really good, especially under Craig Fitzgibbon. And that just tells me that whenever this team puts their minds to something, they can actually do it. And it's a great asset to have. What were your expectations going into the game, Kieran, and what did you get out of it? Did they meet, exceed? Tell me things.
I've kind of been saying for a few weeks, I think there's a big difference between the top four and, the rest of the top eight, like, 5 through 8. And I think you kind of saw that mainly through everything at the Sharks. Like, they were super physical at the start and they were trying to, bash us out of that power game and turn our forwards away. But, the forwards, did a really good job and kept pushing and they weren't scared and they really, absorbed all that contact and just kind of shook it off. And they went to another level and Manly couldn't keep up with them. So, going into that game, I was kind of a little bit nervous just because it's that whole Brookvale thing. And, while we've had some success versus them recently, I never feel comfortable when it's at Brookvale. But it was great to see. I thought the likes of Nikora and Wilton on the edges were absolutely outstanding. And then Toby has really found form since he's been dropped. So it's great to see.
18 missed tackles in total. At a time, it was a lot less than that. The last sort of 10 minutes, we tape it off for obvious reasons. 18 missed tackles going into a finals game. I think that's tremendous.
Yeah, and there was really nothing to play for. Like, Manly was playing for a home semi-final, and the Sharks we were finishing fourth regardless, right? So it's so easy to put the handbrake on and not really absorb that contact or get, turn away and just kind of shy away from it. So it was great to see them be so physical. It'll be interesting to see once we get a few more troops back next week. I'm very anxious to see what's going on with the match review committee with Ramian and Wilton, but we'll have to wait and see what happens there.
I'll let you know if that breaks as we're recording. But you're right. They had very little to play for. Fitzgibbon was on the up saying, we got everything to play for. We try and compete in every game. And I believe what he says, but as a fan looking at it, you're like, you can't go anywhere. all you're playing for is cohesion and form and pride going into this round, which is still that they are still important things to play for. And to go to Brookie was rocking. Like, it was sold out, and it was, you would think, 90-10 fan base. And even when they got back into the game, Manly, when it was, I think it was 4-4 or 6-4, and you thought, oh, we might fall away here. You know, the discipline was a little bit iffy, and I thought, oh, the crowd might get them home, but the Sharks did their thing. They kept the ball in play and they upped the tempo, and the crowd just went away. And that's the absolute blueprint for this week against Melbourne. But I thought that was really impressive, the way they just sort of held their poise, got their act together, things started to click. We completed it 29 of 39, so 74%. That can improve. But 9 line breaks to 3. I mean, you couldn't stop those back rowers. They were just killing it. And yeah, I thought overall really impressive display. Another really good performance at Brookie. We've had, I think, 2 out of the 3 wins there recently have been big ones. So we have no fear now going there. And it was kind of the perfect warm-up for this week, right?
Yeah, and there was times in that first half where I was like, oh, this is a little bit too physical. I wish we rested more players, just because some of the shots that Manly were putting on, they weren't playing around. So it was good to get through it relatively unscathed. I think Hazleton might have picked up a bit of a niggle, but I think other than that, everyone's got out of it fine. And the real value is having Nico play the 2 games. When we were talking about when could we get him back, I was sort of saying you need at least 2 weeks before the finals to sort of get there. And I'm sure we'll touch on it later, but Nico looked a lot more settled. He looked a little bit more dominant too, compared to Trindle, compared in the past, whereas Trindle's kind of taken the reins and Nico's been, a little bit back from him. But I think really good signs, and let's get everyone fit, let's get everyone back on the field and see how we go next week. But there was a point with, like you said, where Manly was kind of getting on top. I thought when their back rower, I can't pronounce his name, number 11. Yeah, when he scored that second half try after the Jack Williams drop ball, I thought, oh, hang on, there's a bit of momentum that could be going Manly's way. But again, the Sharks weathered the storm and they fought through it. So, great lead into this week.
We don't have any news about injuries just yet, but I think Tall Tom might be a bit more serious than what you're letting on. They're talking MCL. So we're waiting to hear whether he can play on or not. It's one of two. He can be needled and play, or he can't. So I think similar to the Ronaldo issue that he had a month ago. And Jesse Ramian, not putting any scare out there, I just think he was noted that he came off with an injury. But I think that's a bit less serious and he could play on. We're waiting to hear about judiciary as well. So a bit of a TBC on the team just yet. They did rest Oregon Kafusi. So that's a straight replacement for Hazleton if that would be the case. And Kafusi comes back in anyway. He was rested, so no dramas there. He played, I think they said he played every game this year, Kieran. Is that?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he played every game. Hadn't missed one.
So that's good coaching. Rest him up for next week. We're going to need him absolutely firing to rip into the Melbourne pack. Let's get into some of the performances. We touched on the halves. Let's go straight there. The dominance of both halves, I mean, it evened out in the end stats-wise, although Trindle had twice the kicks. So Trindle actually kicked 10 times, Nico 5. But I thought Nico definitely had more of a presence, but I thought it evened out as far as the dominance. I don't think Nico overplayed, which was incredible. Didn't need him to as well. And I really think Braden Trindle is starting to be our guy if he's not already our guy. And I don't know why it's taken me all year to kind of come to this conclusion, but he's playing good footy.
That was, I think, again, without getting carried away, it was probably the best I've seen those two actually combine. Sometimes we can win games and you kind of look at the halves and you go, well, one of them had a good game. But you very rarely get a time where you walk away and you go, wow, both halves were absolutely firing and, Blake was doing well as well. So I thought that was probably the most interesting thing to me. I don't know what changed, because again, those two have now been playing for about 2 years together. But I thought attack-wise, that was the best those two guys have looked together in combination, not in isolation. So yeah, it's a good time. Again, I think a lot of it comes off the back of what Blake is doing. I think Blake is in career best form, and it's frustrating because why can't we see efforts like that in attack every week from everybody? Because they've obviously got it in them. But hey, the finals are here now. It's a new competition. Let's see what they can do.
I do think a lot of it comes off that forward pack. If they're not firing the backs, it turns into sort of Hail Mary stuff. But I really love the way we're playing on those edges, and I think against Melbourne that's going to be super handy. I mean, the Ronaldo try where Trindle he threw the ball, but I think it went to ground. He picked it up.
Yeah.
And also the Katoa try as well. Like, it doesn't get any closer to the sideline. Like, they really play with fire there, but it does pay off. We saw one disallowed try to Katoa, but he did get the other one. Hines was great. I thought, I'm never one to criticize Fox because they pay bills, and I'm not going to criticize them now because they pay my bills. But also, I thought that the pregame stuff was just a tad intense on the Nico storyline. Like, he has to. This is his time. He has to. It's like, yeah, you're not wrong, but he can't do it on his own. And let's cut the guy some slack. Like, let him go do his thing. But it was very much a this is his game. They also spun the this is his series, so I understand that. But yeah, the pressure on him out against Manly, I was like, oh man, I hope he doesn't muck this up because we won't hear the end of it. And he didn't.
Yeah.
He was great. And he played, as we said, exactly how he needed to. He was more involved. He wasn't over the top. He wasn't demanding the ball. The kicks were decent. Defense was good as far as I could tell. And attack a lot slicker. And hopefully week 3 of his comeback is going to be his best next week. As you said, gelled well with his halves partner. And I loved it when they sort of combined together as well on the same side. That was some trick shots which didn't quite pay off, but you could see when it will, it'll be really worthwhile. Forward pack was terrific, particularly the back rows. I mean, Britt got all the praise, and he should. He was man of the match. But Teague was really, really good. He was pretty dominating when he's making those runs, and just his whole. I mean, both players, all their gameplay was terrific.
Yeah, he gave DCE an absolute bath, and DCE's been around for a long time. He's one of the best halves in the competition, and you don't really see him get his pants pulled down like that. And Wilton, full credit to him. He came back firing, and it's exciting to see, if he can, put it all together, and Nikora's doing what he does on the other side. Then you've also got the, the Siffer factor as well. Like you got a lot of options there, right? With a lot of guys that run really hard and run really great lines. So again, I'm so happy that both those guys are fit and healthy, because this time last year when we went into that finals game, we didn't have a healthy a team. Right, Wilton wasn't even playing. We had Wade Graham playing for us at the time. So yeah, both guys are in tremendous form.
And as noted by some of the commentators, the decoy runs that Britt was running were as important as the actual runs with ball in hand. Like, his decoy running is so confusing for the opposition, for the defenders. It's awesome. It's NFL like.
And that's what creates the space for Katoa, right?
Terrific, absolutely terrific. And we've already seen some of the Fox promos. I don't know about Channel 9, but some of the Fox promos, they're focusing on Britain this week. They're not focusing on many others. That will change with storylines, but as far as the promo, it's all about Britain. It's pretty exciting, actually.
It'll all be about Nico soon.
It will be. It will be. And I understand that. And I'm not looking for him to have a quiet game or to be overawed. Like, he needs to do what they're saying. I just think that
I agree.
Like, we know the storyline. You don't need to drum it into us. But anyway, that's the media. That's
Did you see when he kicked the goal from the sideline on his second kick? And then you see the smile on his face?
I saw the smile, yeah.
That was kind of like, I'm back. And
if
you felt like he just seemed a little bit more confident. So again, hoping that's the case, hoping he is back, because we can't do anything without him.
Yeah, and we mentioned it on the post game last night that the smile was very evident, and I hadn't seen him feel that and I stress hadn't seen him feel that free. I'm sure he has felt that way, but I hadn't seen that since he came back. So, and even a bit before he was injured. So hopefully that's a good sign. And he kicked great, 6 out of 7. Like there were some really tough kicks. So Craig Fitzgibbon did say that he wouldn't be doing the kicking. So obviously there's been a lot of improvement in that foot injury to take over in a game where you really didn't need to actually get the 2 points.
I didn't know that. So Fitzy said during the week that Trindle was going to do the kicking, did he?
Well, he just said Nico.
Sign, right?
He said Nico wouldn't be because of the planting of the foot.
Okay.
And then he just sort of surprised everyone. So,
well, that does 2 things, right? I mean, one, it says that the foot is getting better, but 2, it also shows that Nico is stepping up and wanting to own those moments and not saying, all right, well, let's let Trindle do it while I focus on other things. Nico's saying, all right, it's business end of the season. Give me the ball and I'll kick 6 from 7. So you can't really ask for much more than that.
Blake Brayley ran for 50 metres. He had a try assist with a nice little kick, and he was lights out again. He's running more. He's engaging the line more. He's getting some 6 again, some penalties, and I love everything about his game at the moment.
Yeah, and it was interesting because they gave him a bit of a rest. So Atkinson played there for a little bit, and so did McInnes. And you could actually really notice the service difference from when Brayley was there. Like some of the passes that Atkinson threw were just not quite on the mark, right?
Yeah.
But with Blake, it always hits the spot. And, there was one, I think, where he lost the ball when he was trying to go down a short side early in the game. But I love that stuff because if he's feeling that free and that license to run, that's when we look our best because our forwards are going forward and then he's bringing Nico onto the ball and that's when Nico can play like a fullback and that's when Nico looks at his best, right? So Blake is incredibly important to us and I thought he's had a really good year this year.
He has, absolutely. I don't know what award they're going to give him because if he was Player of the Year last year, then
he's way better this year.
I mean, he's got some competition this year, no doubt, but he's way better is the point. Bench was Atkinson, Williams, Hazelton, and Talakai. We saw Hazelton play for 30 minutes, but he did come off injured. Jack played for just over half a game. Atkinson, 25 minutes. First touch, scored a try from a kick. Talakai, 35 minutes. Talakai not grabbing headlines, but out there getting some minutes after having a week off, so that was good to see. How do you feel about the 3 forward bench, 1 utility? Even though Atkinson did play as a forward, are you cool with that moving forward? I think I'm cool with it.
Yeah, well, I think if Hazelton is out, I think I'm probably leaning more towards that now. Hamlin Ueli, I've always said, we need him to be fit and firing for us, but it just doesn't seem like he's got to the level that the club wants him at, which is why he wasn't picked on the weekend.
Yeah.
So I think in that case, you kind of look at the opposition, you look at who you're playing against. I think having Atkinson on the bench gives you so many options. He can play hooker, fullback, lock, centre, wing. He can play anywhere, really. Yeah. So having him on the bench does give you that level of comfort. But I just don't know because sometimes I do like that power game. But then you also do face the fact of do we have too much like for like, right? And if we're just defending like we were against the Warriors, we need something to change it up a little bit, right? And so we kept putting on the big guys, but there's no point having a Hamlin Ueli out there just to defend for 15 Correct. Minutes when we don't have the ball, right? So I think that's going to be an interesting way that we play it. But I did have a little chuckle to myself. Jack Williams scores that try under the post, and it's like, all right, as you feel good moment, and then he drops the ball off to play the ball, and then they score. So I was just thinking of the mailbag and how much the internet was going to melt down on that one. But hey,
it did melt down. It did melt down. But we read out some stats last night on the post game, and it was something like at that moment when he dropped the ball, he'd already run for 120 meters. He had a line break. He'd made 25 tackles. Like he'd done a lot of work. He did a lot of work. And then he made an error, which he can't be doing in fight. Like none of them can be making errors. It's simple as that. Yeah. And they scored from that set. So costly, but also you need to look at it in relation to everything else. And it's a tough one because it's Jack, but I mean, I'm just looking at the error list here. Katoa made an error, Multalo made an error, Trindle made an error, Hines made an error, Bradley made an error, Wilton made 2, McInnes made 1, Jack made 1. It's just that we can't defend ones when Jack drops them. So, it's not good. Like, I'm not making light of it in the sense of like, it's all good. It's not all good. Like, don't be doing it.
Yeah.
Don't be doing it. But
well, it's interesting about Wilton having 2, right? Because I didn't even remember that Wilton dropped the ball twice. So there you go.
That's right. So I think Jack has that stereotype, and it's up to him to change it. He did change it for a while in a lot of our eyes because he had a whole season without it and killed it, and he's still killing it. But yeah, I think if it becomes like every game and then we concede every game, say he signs on next year and it's like 20 games of it, we might have a big problem. But I don't think at the moment it's a problem. It's just something he needs to fix up. And we've seen him fix it up historically. So
yeah, and I mean, the club really rates what he does from a defensive standpoint as well, right? So he brings a lot to the team that is not just about, the meters that he makes and all that type of stuff, right? So he definitely has a place in the 17 at the moment. It's just if he could eliminate those drop balls, it would just make everyone's life a lot easier, including, my dogs who hear me scream every time he drops the ball.
So, yes, bench of Atkinson, Williams, Hazelton, Talakai. They all did a job, which is great. And that was the game against Manly. We rock into Melbourne this Saturday, 4 o'clock. And it's going to be a bell ringer. It's going to be awesome. I mean, such a great history with these guys over a short, over 20 years. Great history. And we have some form there. I mean, as recent as this year. What are your initial thoughts going into the game, Kieran?
I really wish we didn't win earlier this year down in Melbourne, because I think the idea of going down there twice and doing it twice to Melbourne, in the same season, like, there's not many teams that would ever have that on their resume, right? So my expectations going into this game are nerves, because, again, I really do think Melbourne's a really good side. I think that on our day we can beat Melbourne. But I don't walk in there with supreme confidence. I'm sure within the Sharks' 4 walls, they have supreme confidence that they'll go down there and do a job. But I think now is the time for the club to really buy into this mentality of nobody expects us to do this, nobody rates us. Let's go down to Melbourne and let's do an ambush. And the way to get an ambush done is to dominate via the forwards. And we do have a forward pack if we hold the ball that can get on top of teams. And they did it earlier this year against against Melbourne, right? So let's see how they go. But I wish we weren't playing Melbourne, but hey, that's just me.
So the recent form, looking at it, actually isn't as amazing as what we might think. They've won 6 of the past 8, but we've won 2 of the past 3. So
and the one that we lost, they beat us by like 50 down there, right?
They did. So round 22, 2022, round 17, at Shark Park on a Thursday, we whipped them 28-6. We then go down to Melbourne round 15. Last year, lose 54-10. Memorable game to you and I. And then this year, round 10, of course, we beat them 25-18. So good recent form, but overall not amazing. And at Amy Park, we've won 3 of 15.
Yeah.
The 3 have come since 2017. So it's 1, 2, 3. So we're 3 wins, 3 wins, 5 losses since 2017. So still not great. Prior to 2024, round 11, round 10, I should say, we last won in 2018. So again, historically not amazing, but 2 of the past 3 against them in total is not a bad thing. I think that stuff's out the window for the team. I'm just talking about it for our listeners and viewers. I'm with you about the ambush. I think that Melbourne know it's coming. I think everyone knows it's coming, but you have to do it. and they'll have their own ambush. They'll be ready to rock Melbourne. So
Absolutely.
it's more about us trying to turn that tide and definitely play on the fact that no one thinks we can do it. Although I don't know if everyone is saying that completely, but I think by the time we get there, people will be tipping Melbourne rather
They'll be
than
paying
us.
$1.10 surely to beat us. Like, they'll be heavy favourites.
I don't think they'll be heavy favourites. I don't think it'll be that heavy. I think that it'd be something like, and I'm not an expert in this stuff, but I think it would be more like $1.50, $2.80 kind of business, you know?
Yeah.
Just because this year we've been okay and we beat them, and I could be wrong about that, but I would definitely be playing on the us against the world. And I've said this a few times now. I would be throwing every single freaking thing
Absolutely
at them. Like, do not leave anything in the tank, whether it's coaching, whether it's playing, whether it's
a grand final for us.
It is. You get the job done and you're one step away. So I would be playing that Canberra game from 2016 on repeat on the screens in the gym at the Sharks and wherever they go. Just keep playing it. And
Matt Pryor everywhere. Just photos of Matt Pryor on everywhere you look, a photo of Matt Pryor.
Wade Graham going down, Paul Gallen in hospital, like the whole thing. Just go for it. Maloney, Ennis doing the clap. Like, well, that's not as important, but just I would really spend an hour on that game. This is what everyone thought. This is what happened. You guys want to be spoken like this. You got to go do a job. It's going to be a challenge. It's going to be an uphill battle. It's not impossible. Like, if we play to our potential,
it can be done.
It. Absolutely. And yeah, I'm excited, man. I don't fear the big smashing like last year, for example. I'm not saying it can't happen.
I don't see that happening.
Yeah. I think we're going to be up for it. If they're not up for it, then we've got major issues. But
yeah,
I think on paper we can go there. Got to play to our best though, because some of their key guys are just unbelievable. But I think where we do get them is that all 17 of our guys are of a certain standard. I think when it comes to the Storm, some of the guys, they're not bad players by any means, but a guy, and I'm picking him out of a hat, a guy like Nick Meaney, for example, he's been unbelievable for them, but you wouldn't say he's an unbelievable player. And there's a few guys in there, some guys in the forward pack, who I kind of rate the same. And again, they can win the game for them. So I'm not dissing them. I'm not dismissing them. I'm not being critical. I'm saying if you take your Pappenhausens, your
Harry Grant,
obviously Harry Grant, the halves are unbelievable. Like, if you take the spine out, I guess I'm saying, and you are left with some big boppers, but the rest of it is kind of manageable. So, whereas our guys, mostly 1 to 17, we rate them all pretty highly. They all play to a certain level every week as a team. So that's what it's going to take. And I do think if the forwards can win that battle, man, it's going to go a long, long way. And then it's just simple things, pressure on the kickers,
Yeah.
Kick chase.
It's going to come down to our back five. Like, our back five and our forward pack really have to set the standard, and then our halves have to put them in the right positions to take advantage of that, right? So that Storm team has got a crazy spine. They're so good. Yeah. But to your point, I think our back five can get over their back five, and I think our forward pack could get over their forward pack. It's just their spine is ridiculous. It's like, if you were to do like a fantasy draft and you got those players in your fantasy draft, people would complain that you got all those guys.
Jerome Hughes, he may not reach Cooper Cronk levels, but he's trending the same way that Cooper Cronk trended in his career. That's how probably underrated he is at this point in time, even though people rate him. Like, he's that good. We know about the other guys. They're unbelievable. I'm assuming Pappenhausen's going to be fit, right?
But even if he's not, that Falongo is...
Well,
he is insane as well.
Thankfully, I believe he's not playing. We won't see till tomorrow, but I believe he's injured.
Okay. Well, yeah. Well, look, Pappenhausen is, he's had some injuries, but geez, he's a quality player. And Munster is the guy that always gets us. And Munster, outside of Nico, has been done at club level. It's been done at State of Origin level.
Yep.
So Nico's going to really have a huge game defensively on his hands because those two are great mates. And what do you like to do with your mates? You like to mess with them, right? So
Yeah.
Munster's going to be going for him. Like, there's no tomorrow, right? So I think that's going to be a huge thing for Nico. But again, to stop that, it's got to be physical, right? So again,
Yep.
it's going to play into that ambush mentality of, everyone's going to be aggressive, everyone's going to go for it. Because for us, if we can win this game somehow and get a week off, you're 80 minutes away from a grand final.
Unbelievable, yeah. And I
The
think
carrot is there.
that's where you use your not necessarily mobile pack, but your fit pack. So if Hamlin Willie's under a doubt, well, sorry. If Tall Tom's
Yeah.
under a doubt, I don't think so. Like, you can't be carrying guys in week one of the finals unless there is no one to replace them or it's absolutely necessary.
We saw it last year, right, with the Roosters game. We were busted going into that. And even the year before that, after we played the Cowboys, there were so many injuries, people were busted. And the team we put up out against Souths, it was not the
Yep.
Sharks that we were expecting, right? So that's why I get a little bit annoyed when people talk about the finals record and things like that, because no excuses. They should have definitely won against the Roosters last year, but that was a busted team. Like, Will Kennedy, I don't think was playing. Wilton wasn't there. Siffer was, in all sorts, right? So this is a time where we're actually fit.
It's the fittest we've been with Fitzgibbon at this time of the year.
Absolutely.
And let's not rule out the Fitzgibbon factor. I mean, he is under a lot of pressure, probably from all levels, but B, he's a guy that takes so much pride in what he does. And I've heard him say it, him losing does not sit well week to week. If he'd lost yesterday against Manly by 2 points, he would have been very annoyed. Like, you don't necessarily see it in his persona. You won't hear it at the press conference. He's not a guy that likes losing. And he has a reputation now for a guy that can't coach a team in the finals. And I don't think he'd be desperate to shake that, because he within himself knows what you're saying. Like, they're better than that. He's better than that. But it's still one of those pride things where you really want to rub it in the face on Saturday at 8 o'clock and go, you know what? You said we couldn't win a finals game. Well, look who we just knocked off. So I think we shouldn't rule out the Fitzgibbon factor in this as well. He's had a pretty good season coaching. He's done some things that we didn't think we would see, and some nice changes and some corrections of the way he's coached in the past. So I think he's going to play a big role as well. Coming up against Bellamy, probably the greatest of all time. So that's going to be a fascinating storyline. And I'm pretty pumped. We've got a lot of listeners who are going down to the game, which is awesome. We've got a lot of listeners in Melbourne who are already ready to go. They've got the pre-game ready. They've got the post-game ready. So it's an exciting time. And as much as you dread a trip to Melbourne to play these guys, this is what it is. Let's go for it. Let's embrace it. Like, the team's going to embrace it. So I think as fans, we need to embrace it as well. And it doesn't mean you go in with blind hope, but it's a winnable game. We won in round 10.
Yeah, and I think it's for the guys like Nakora, right? The guys like that have been with this club now for a few years, that have came through the 20s and all that type of stuff. They haven't experienced that final success, because I just don't think we've been in the position to have that success, right? And again, I am not 100% that we're going to win this game. I do have my concerns about it, but I do see a world where they buy into that mentality, and a guy like Britton can carry us, to a big win. Our forwards will step up, and I can see us, chatting next week and saying, wow, they actually did it and they put everything into it. Because again, this is a club that's got a lot of frustrations. They've had a lot of annoyances. They've had some false starts with the finals in the past, and now's the chance for them to shock the world. And if they do that, you then send Melbourne and Penrith on the same side of the draw, assuming Penrith beats the Roosters. So that completely blows open the entire competition. And when you do that, you also get a week off. So if they can't be up for this, and I have no doubts that they will be up for it, you're never going to be up for it, right? And yes, the bounce back factor, if they lose this game and then they play, I think it's either Manly or the Dogs, I think they get the winner of that. It's not the same, right? And again, you just have to put everything into this week and try and get that week off, because it has so much value.
Actually, we might need to pause on who we play, because I think it might be the other side.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, I think it's Cowboys Knights.
Well, I mean, either way, week two is a super winnable game compared to week one, right? But you don't want to be in that position where you're playing that week two game.
No.
You want the week off, and you want
Yep.
to send Melbourne over to the Penrith side of the draw, ideally, and then you probably would get the Roosters if they can make their way through that side of the draw, or
Because I
whatever the
mean,
case
I
is.
mean, I
But
mean, you can make the argument that like it's all about cohesion and performance this time of the year. Of course, it is. It's also about being fit and
fit,
not hurt. And that week off is crucial in so many ways. It's because you get a step closer. You got a foot in the door of the grand final. It's because you get to rest players. Players can prepare for the week, for the next game. The coaches can it's a beauty. We've all been there from time to time in our life, unless you're probably a newer, younger listener, viewer. But we've experienced the week off, and it's a beautiful thing.
it's
So
the confidence too, right? And when we had the week off in 2016, the Sharks got the winner of the Cowboys and Broncos. The Cowboys and Broncos went to extra time and they beat the crap out of each other. And then when we got the Cowboys, we were fresh, and that first half was one of the most fun halves of football I've ever had at football. I think we put like 20 points on,
yep,
right out the gates, right, and just blew them off the park. So again, this is the time where if you're ever going to be positive, if you're ever going to dream of something, now's the time. It's September. Like if you don't believe in it now, you've got to something you got to believe, right? Again,
you
I'm
do.
not 100% that they're going to win this game, but hey, I can see a path to victory. I can see it, and I want it, and I
And
really am hoping that they get it done.
Craig Fitzgibbon brought up some good points, or I should say, it was brought up by reporters in the press conference, and then he addressed it. And it's the fact that they are a top four team, and you can
Yeah,
talk about past losses, you can talk about, going on a massive winning streak this year, then falling out of that, and then coming back into it, and then a few blemishes. But they're a top four team. They've been there all year. They've been a top four team more or less for 3 years under his guidance. They
yep,
deserve to be there, which is the first thing. They deserve to be there. And they're not, in my opinion, worlds away from the other three teams above them. There's an absolute fair argument to say, well, where we sit is where we sit. That's where we stand currently. It's correct. But we're not that far away. And as you pointed out before we went on air, we're actually, in our opinion, quite above fifth to eighth, as
yeah,
far as how good we are. So the dreaming and the hoping is great, but it's also not unrealistic. We've seen teams do it. We've seen our club do it before. Yeah, it's a massive thing to do going to Melbourne, but teams have beaten Melbourne before, especially in finals down there. The Warriors did it. We've seen them do it. So
yeah.
you have to be on. It's not going to be pretty. It's not going to be easy. It's not going to be a massive margin when we win. It could be really, really painful to watch until we get that win. But that's what the finals do to you. And it's there to be taken. And I
Yep.
have no doubt that the club, including Nico Hines, are very confident in their abilities. I have no doubt in my mind. You can write to us and tell us about Nico's mental state, and you can write to us and tell us about Fitzy's finals records, and we encourage you to do it. Sharkcastpod@gmail.com. You can DM us, but I'm telling you right now, this team will be ready to rock. And for whatever reason, if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. But we're not going to address that until full time of that game, because we're playing to win. And as you said, if you can't be up for this as a fan right now, I don't know what to say. It doesn't. I'm not saying you're in the wrong, but I you and I spend a lot of time, as do a lot of our listeners and viewers, on this team. We study them, we watch them,
Yep.
we support them in all manners of the word. It doesn't mean that you and I, for example, think we're going to win every single week, because that's not the case.
Yeah.
This week, we're saying we can win if we play to our full strength and our ability. Maybe you need something to go your way. I don't know what the difference is going to be, but it's completely doable. And if you're not believing that at the moment, maybe just start to try, because your week will be a lot more enjoyable than sitting on the edge of your lounge going, we can't do it, we can't do it, we can't do it. We're going to drop the ball. Jack's going to drop the ball. We can't, that's not fun. You got to embrace it. They're going to embrace it, so we should, I reckon.
Yeah, look, when I say look, I'm not confident that we're going to win this game, but I can see a path to us winning that game. I think that's kind of just I try and have a reality view on this team and where we sit. And we do sit. I think we're the second best defensive team in the comp. Is that the case? I think I read that somewhere yesterday.
I'll have a look
But
for you while you talk.
but right now, like we sit in the top four. We've been embedded in the top four. We are better than a lot of the other teams that are out there. Yes, there is a gap between the Storm and Panthers, in my belief, to the Roosters and Sharks. So I think that they're in a different category to us. But on our day, they can step it up and they can get things done. And if there was ever a storyline to be written around, a siege mentality, nobody rates us, there's no perfect place to go besides Melbourne. Like, that is the most perfect spot for us to be in. Going down to Melbourne, it's the last time they're going to get on the plane for the season. There's no more away games outside of Sydney after this week. There is so much that they could put into this, and the narrative and even all the stuff around Nico and all the noise around Nico. This is the perfect chance for him to step up and to ice those moments. And if he can do it, he's going to feel bulletproof, right? If Nico can lead us to a victory in Melbourne in the finals and silence some of those doubters, then you've got Nico who's going to be super confident, who's 80 minutes away from a grand final, right? So that's the part of me that goes, all right, do I believe that Nico is $1 million player? I do believe he's $1 million player, right? He can get the job done. So, fingers crossed it happens, but yeah, it's going to be tough.
You know what would be great is if, and I said it on the show last night, if he didn't have to be that player this week. If we just get the job done and he's 8 out of 10, he's awesome. But there's no need for a clutch moment. Like, we just get the job done. He gets more confidence. Nice. You know what I mean? Like, I just think that I'm not giving him extra treatment or saying don't go hard on him or whatever. But I think even I, as one of his bigger fans, I'm just so sick of this narrative. But I also understand it. Like, I understand it, but also there's 16 other dudes. They're not on his money, but there's 16 other dudes to do a job.
And everybody goes through those moments of self-doubt and all those type of things, right? And I think because Nico has been so open and honest about it and trying to help other people, it's kind of made him a target. So, everyone, the littlest thing can happen, like a drop ball, and everyone will just go, oh, how's Nico going to deal with that? And that should not be the reaction to it, right? It should be, okay, that's a drop ball. Let's move on, unless it's Jack Williams, because if it's Jack Williams, you're going to burn your house down. But I think with Nico at the moment...
Is that an AEW reference? Whose house? Swerve's house.
I did watch AEW yesterday. That was a really good pay-per-view. I won't say anything. But it was just a good show. Yeah, look, Nico, the moment's there for him, right? So I can see your point where it'd be nice where he doesn't have to ice a moment and just get through the game and we win comfortably. Realistically, I just can't see that happening in Melbourne. So what I would just like to see from Nico is, a good defensive game, good kicking game, good goal kicking, and let's see where it all lands, because he does have it in him. If we play well as a team, then Nico's going to be at the forefront of that. So fingers crossed.
Defensively, second best as in fewest points conceded. So Penrith concede 16.5 points per game. We're at 18. So level with the Bulldogs. So equal second. We've conceded the third fewest tries, fifth fewest line breaks, about sixth fewest missed tackles. But as far as points conceded, which is the biggest one, equal second best. With attack, we are right around Melbourne. We're fourth best for most points. They average almost 29. We're around 27, so not too bad there. We both score around 5 tries per game, which is just under the Roosters. We have the second most tackle bus, so going pretty good there. Probably need to see some improvement in the completions. We're sitting at 10th best at around 80%. But having said that, Melbourne is below us in 11th. So sometimes the completion rate thing is a little bit of a hard stat to read. Although I will say we have the worst worst incompletion rate in our own half. So that's what we need to improve on. So let's grab some water.
Yeah, well, those stats, if you read out those stats at the start of the season and said, look, the Sharks will finish the second best defense, only 2 points behind Penrith in points conceded per game. They'll score the same amount of points as Melbourne do every week. You would be stoked with those those stats. And again, I'm not trying to be fluffy, but there is a world where this team can put it together and get it done in 80 minutes. We haven't seen it yet, but if you look at the numbers, you look at the stats, they are really close to doing something special. And that's why I'm really excited about getting Fanua Blake, because I think he is the missing piece for us. But we don't have him yet. So with the guys that we've got, there's a job to do.
We are conceding the second most penalties, about
That's not surprising.
6 per game. But having said that, a team above us is conceding the most in the Roosters. So again, obviously they can be costly, and you need to improve on that. But having said that, the Gold Coast have the fewest, so it doesn't really mean
that's interesting.
A lot sometimes, you know what I mean? Well, for example, the teams conceding the fewest penalties, none of them in the top 5 are successful. So Gold Coast, Brisbane, Dragons, Canberra Warriors. So,
and what it all comes down to, it's holding players down in the ruck and doing those sort of things and winning the wrestle and all that battle. So it's not a surprise that the Roosters and Sharks are those two most penalised teams, because, again, they're two teams that like to control the ruck.
Now, we're going to do Random Shark of the Week. I expect you to get this in one go because we don't have a lot of time to play with. But we're going to do Random Shark of the Week. He was born in 1981. Probably similar to when you were born, I imagine. He weighed, at the time, over 110 kilograms.
When he was born?
No, at the time. So that's a good point. At the time of his birth. At the time of playing, he weighed over 100 kilograms.
Okay.
This shark played 1 year for us. And it was in my least favorite year of all time. Both in life and in Sharks.
This is 2003, right?
You call it whatever you want. 3 games. All 3 games were off the bench. He had 1 win, 2 losses. He played against the Broncos, the Dragons, and the Storm. 2 games at Shark Park, 1 at QE2 Stadium. He, in height, was around 196 centimeters. 196 centimeters. He debuted in round 1 of 2003.
All right.
Very memorable game.
I remember it so well because it started so well. You know, we were so close the year before in 2002, and then they were smacking Melbourne, and then all of a sudden this guy called Billy Slater just decided to become an immortal.
3 games. Junior club, Milton Ulladulla Bulldogs.
Ooh. Okay. I think I need a little bit more, though.
I don't have too much more as far as playing goes.
Did he play for any other clubs?
No, I don't even have any kind of cup information here. So one could say that he dedicated his post-career to a different world. Went on to do some other things.
Now I'm thinking he's into like psychedelics and stuff.
Getting closer. He's very tall.
Oh, Sean Wessels.
Sean Wessel is our random player of the week. Tall Sean, as he's now known. Out there foking it up.
I think we re-signed him after 2003 as well for 2004, but I don't think he played. But yeah, he got another contract with us, I think.
Well, we're going to tag him on this and he can jump on and tell us about his Sharks career because we love Tall Sean, great musician. See him playing around the traps and definitely part of the folklore that was 2003. So, random player of the week, Sean, we send our love and respect to you. Hope you're doing well. Great to see you out there playing so much. Kieran, we're going to get out of here, my friend. Time to get ready for a finals week 1 game down in Melbourne Saturday afternoon. It's going to be a ripper. We'll have some more pods for you throughout the week. You can bet on that. Don't bet on anything else, but you can bet on that. And until then, Kieran, hope you have a great week. And just remember that you can get in touch with us at Sharkcast Pod on the socials. Sharkcastpod@gmail.com is the email. You can follow us on all sorts of places, including the YouTube, but all sorts of places. Until then, Kieran, we'll just leave you with the wise words that wrestling is real. People are fake.